Hi, my name's Renee Mynott, and I'm a video journalist with Sustainability Television. And today I'm here with Mark Ameerali, and he's just written his first book, Common Sense. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Renee. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'd really like to get a deeper understanding of why you wrote Common Sense.
Well, Renee, the reason that I really wrote the book was because I'd like to be the change that I want to see in the world, and I'd like to influence it in a positive way somehow.
And how do you see that starting?
I see it starting by taking action on telling people what I know and how I use what I know to make the world a better place, really.
And who are the people in your life that helped you to get to this place?
Well, both of my parents were very large role models for me. My parents are immigrants from the Caribbean, Trinidad, and I saw what the result of poor financial literacy did for them and for our family. And I knew that I definitely didn't want to go through that same struggle. So I made it a point in my life to learn how to avoid those types of struggles and teach other people how to avoid them as well. Because I believe that you become so much more beautiful of a person when you are free from that financial struggle. And you can do the things you really want to do and help the people you really want to help if you don't have to worry about, the bills that you have to pay every month.
So it sounds like you might have witnessed some of those exact things in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of 8 children. I'm the 4th of 8, and when our house burned down, I was age 12, and we lost pretty much everything in that fire. We had no insurance. Wow. And I watched my parents struggle. At this point, my dad was just starting to go back to school, and I watched them go to school full time and work full time to support us. And I just knew that there had to be a better way than the way that we had to do it. And I'd like to help other people not have to have that sort of struggle.
So yeah, in the case like that, it's like you're seeing, where somebody has to take action. And it sounds to me like what you're wanting to do is offer some preventative kind of measures for people.
That's right, exactly. I mean, I think if people have the correct information coming out of high school, for example, especially in a country like this, then they never have to find themselves in that situation at all. And I think if, to change the system, someone has to do something and take action. So that's, why I wrote the book, to get that information out there, especially for youth.
And did you find that you had role models for yourself around financial literacy?
Financial literacy role models, not so much. I remember very little about any sort of financial education in high school. Even in university, I went to school and did a degree in commerce specializing in finance. And there's really not much literacy. There's information, but not education, not knowledge imparted. And I learned a lot about what I didn't want to be when I went into that and when I started working. And I just didn't find a lot of role models that were the kind of role models that I wanted to follow. So I figured, you know what? I have to start being that. If I want to start being the person that I would like to have learned from and start giving that to other people.
And so what are the attributes do you think that you've had to really, summon within yourself to be able to take this on?
Well, that's a good question. I think you need a lot of determination to put yourself out there and to expose yourself and your fallibilities to other people. And you have to go in with an open heart and just put yourself out there and have people able to accept you or not. And that's a very difficult thing to do. But I believe that when people align themselves and see their own belief system in you and their values in what you're doing, then you find a lot of people will come and want to have relationships with you.
Well, and it sounds like there was a lot of strength in your family experience of support and encouragement for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when people heard about the struggles that my parents were going through and when our house burned down, communities really gathered around us and to help us, and it's always actually been like that. We would have never made it as a family financially if we didn't have that community support. So that's a really important part to my story is that collection, that community effort to do something.
Right. So what kind of experiences would you think that would have made a difference for you that you would like to now make for the younger people today?
I think that if we had some of this introduced into the education system, that would make a huge difference because it's not there right now. I think that kids really need to learn about this stuff before they leave high school and get into the real world. And not just the financial information, but the responsibilities that having that information puts on them to make the world a better place, which is really the end goal here, is to create a better world by the use of this information.
And were there any teachers or any specific people along the way where you could have these kinds of conversations? Because it sounds like you've been interested in this for a long time.
I have. I wasn't really able to articulate it in high school. I didn't really have any role models in this area in high school. When I got to university and I got to business school, I did start finding some. I had one absolutely excellent teacher that everybody kind of gravitated towards, and he did a fantastic job empowering us and showing us the strength that we had within ourselves to find out this information. And he really kind of changed the course of my life when I saw him doing his thing. But he was extremely in demand and wasn't necessarily available to each one of us. And you know what? So what I did was I started reading. I started reading the biographies and autobiographies of the people that I thought would be worth modeling my life after, and that gave me a lot of good material to follow from. And
who were some of those people that you were reading?
Well, some of the people that I read initially were the Kiyosakis and the David Chiltons of the world. And then I started getting into more of the forefathers of finance, like the Warren Buffetts. I really, really like Warren Buffett's style. Mm-hmm. I think he's probably the main person that I try to emulate in my thinking process, because he's a brilliant man, but he's just a normal, everyday guy if you're speaking to him and if you're listening to him. He breaks things down in such a simple, everyday language that it's so easy to grasp, and he's talking about some extremely complex things. And I believe that the ultimate complexity is simplicity. The ultimate mastery is simplicity. You take something that seems really confusing and you make it seem so simple. You really have to be a true master to be able to do that, and that's one of the things I try to do.
Well, that's what it seems to really be with your book. I've had the pleasure of reading it, and I think that you've made a lot of information really accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was my goal, so that anyone in high school, on a high school level, could pick it up and understand it and feel like they've been empowered by the information out there, that they could go out and use it that day. And it seems like, I'm hopeful that I've hit the mark there.
So Mark, what about other role models that you've got in your life?
Well, outside of the finance world, I think I've had quite a few great role models, and I would have to say that my parents are probably the first and best. I saw what they went through to get us where we got, mm-hmm. and the advantages that they've provided us that they never had. And I can't help but be inspired when I see someone like my mom, for example, working so hard. There's really no excuse for me to be slacking and just kind of drifting through life with no purpose when I see someone like her working so hard at what she does and how passionate she is about what she does. And she's always told us, you can't go wrong if you're guided by your values. And life is complex enough without chasing a particular thing or a job or a paycheck. And you can easily go off the path if you're chasing those sorts of things. But when you're guided by your core, your heart and your values, you can actually never go wrong. So that's been a huge motivator for me to know that I'm following my heart and I'm being the change that I want to see in the world, like Gandhi says to do. I can't just wait and hope someone else does it. Someone has to take action, and I'm not afraid to do that, because I can see the advantages I've been given by my parents and the way they've lived their lives.
Well, it's such a powerful and courageous invitation, really, from your mom to, set that tone for you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's got an amazing story growing up down in Trinidad and basically being put out on her own at age 7 and trying to make it on her own until she was raised by the convent there. And, they saw how talented she was, and they knew that she would never be able to reach her full potential in that country. So they made it possible for her to come here to Canada and make her way. And being part of that story and watching that unfold, you can't sit back and do nothing.
No, that's right. Yeah, it makes you take that step into action, and immediately when you see something needs to be done. I'm sure it's like it sounds like you're the guy that's going to do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to be. It is literally how I was raised. I mean, I mean, I'm watching her, you know, if someone needs help, she's the first one to jump up and offer her assistance, you know. That's just the way that I was shown how to do things.
You know, and I think that's one of the real beautiful qualities of a rich life, is having those kinds of connections with people and that ability just to respond when that's what's needed.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely been a huge role model for me for taking action, for being the first to volunteer, for you know, the first to speak up, especially in the defense of someone who's being taken advantage of. That's a huge thing for my mom, and it's a huge thing for me.
So advocacy.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And now I see, you know, I learn, my passion is financial literacy, and I see so many people out there being taken advantage of financially through lack of information.
Right.
You know, so this is one area where I can take the skills where I've put so much time and effort and resource into learning to kind of help turn the tables and help those people like me when I was younger with no information and no real access to it or no knowledge of it, and provide that information to people who can actually turn around and use it. And that's why I wrote the book.
So it seems to me you're on the leading edge of you know, finance and values being blended.
Absolutely. I think there's really an emerging trend starting up recently, especially with the development of the new types of corporations and companies, the way you can structure them,
yes.
to really integrate value systems into profit models. And I think it's really a step in the right direction. And I think I'm looking forward to what the future holds in terms of you know, companies taking a leadership role.
So Mark, I know you've been doing some things for the community around financial literacy, some workshops and that kind of thing. Is there anything that has inspired you to continue on with what you're doing?
Absolutely, the response. Every time I put it out there, I always get a great response. People want this information. They're looking for this information because they know it's so valuable to them.
Right. And where would people find out about how to be more involved with what you're doing?
Well, you know, I do offer free workshops on Meetup. I offer courses at the universities, and off my website, mymoneysense.ca, you can get in contact with me and find out what's going on in the current events.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today, and it's mymoneysense.ca, and the book is Common Sense, and I'm Renee Mynott, and this is Sustainability Television.